My name is Jennifer Wayne, and I'm excited to welcome you to Motivating Moments. Your host, Sean, is here to help you reach your highest potential by sharing stories that inspire and fuel your inner positivity. Think of it like a power play, where each episode gives you the advantage to overcome obstacles and score personal victories. The positivity we create here is contagious, passing to your friends, family, and community. Let's keep passing that positivity and shoot for a brighter, more positive future together.
All right.
Now, I've known you for what, like 6 years now?
Yes, sir. About
Yeah, we
that.
met
Yeah.
in Florida, and I appreciate you being on the show. And you're not going to talk about the t-shirt business.
I
You have
prefer
a
not
much
unless you really need me
bigger
to.
story.
I think so.
Do you want to start from the top? And you can talk the whole time. This is your show. This is your episode.
Well, I guess I'll start with why the reason I thought you reached out to me originally. I had no idea that you were interested at all in my small business, but because it's the way we met, right? And so I think you're already aware that I was medically discharged from the Air Force. I served 24 years as a medical or in the medical field as an officer, and I was medically discharged, rather abruptly, and it was because I had a psychotic break, and so I had just left Travis Air Force Base. I was due to retire actually out there, and started having marital problems, and so was going through a divorce, and so rather than get a divorce in California, I decided to stay in the military, and I took a twilight tour, and that's where you and I met at Tyndall Air Force. And shortly after I got there, and I do mean shortly because I was still living in the building, and I recall it so vividly. I'm sitting in my chair and I'm watching a show or a movie, and I wish I knew the movie off, but it was kind of like a retribution kind of movie. But anyway, I won't get into the because I don't recall the name. But anyway, I was watching the film, and all of a sudden, I just kind of had a flood of I don't know what to really even call it, man. I mean, like it felt like like a flood of serotonin, where just overwhelming, just happiness and euphoria. And I don't even know how to describe it. It was just next level, like skin, skin raised and everything. Like I just and it was just something was happening, and I recall I was kind of communicating with a buddy of mine, letting him know that these things that I was going through some kind of experience, and I started journaling about it or started recording about it. To be honest, like it was strange because I had thoughts, or I was getting what I would call, or what I at the time and even still now probably call downloads. I would get this flood of information that seemed like it was not coming from me. It was just never things that I didn't had thought about before, and so I started journaling these things, and I had obviously a lot of referential thinking because again my brain kind of took me to a different place, and in that I mean like I was like, man, I'm Jesus, and I really I thought that I would think those kind of thoughts, because I just was over, and I don't mean Jesus, I just kind of saw this, that's who I compared myself to in my thoughts. And what I mean by that is just the love, the compassion. I just kind of had that strong, overwhelming feeling, and I just started feeling like, all right. And I also coupled that with the mindset that that we're all gods. And what I mean by that is like nobody's greater than the next, but we're all gods. And I remember the some of the lessons that I recall from my upbringing in church, and that's kind of the message that Jesus shared, right? And so and that's kind of where I made what I assume made the association, because I was very clear in my journal, and that I didn't believe that I was Jesus, but I felt like Jesus. I don't know if I can describe um, that. Um, I guess I don't know if I can describe that any better than that. But anyway, I think the probably an important part of that story, or I guess to give you some background narrative on that, was prior to that experience or that psychotic break. I was a staunch atheist, and by that I mean like almost militant atheist on along the lines of like your Richard Dawkins, your Sam Harris types. And I published a book on the topic, on the topic of determinism, where I believed in the absence of free will. I believed in fate and destiny, and I saw a designed world absent God is really how I saw it. And I would, I studied, Newtonian physics and kind of psychology and subconscious and consciousness, and those kind of things screamed to me that, you lived in a dictated society, or if you had any free will, it was very little at that. And I just didn't think people were as conscious of how much we allow, I guess, our subconscious to dictate our day-to-days. And so I wrote a book with that as my worldview. And, the joke's on me. I had that psychotic break, and was opened up to something much more beautiful. And by that, I mean, just like the world was much more comprehensive and beautiful than I had previously understood it. And so I think, there was a series of incidents, and what I don't know that I can really describe them. Certainly, I just wasn't of this, reality. Is probably this base reality, in the sense that I would perceive things much differently. I mean, I would cry at a beautiful sunset. I'd spend time listening to insects chirp, and or whatever it may be. Watch water drops, and just find beauty in everything. It was just, and it was so unique to anything else I had felt before. And and I've described to you, I had like this duality in my brain, where there'd be moments, again, because I was diagnosed as bipolar, right? And so I always understood bipolar to be, rapid thoughts back and forth. But that was, or either that, or maybe extreme depression. And I didn't think I had ever experienced these things before, so I was kind of shocked. In fact, before I was diagnosed, I thought I was maybe schizophrenic, because it was in my family. And so but I didn't let on that I was sick, or that was having these mental health issues. And so unfortunately, eventually it was discovered, because I would go on these, crazy missions while I was manic. And, in my mind, they were spiritual in nature, but it was just exploring the universe, really. If it were exploring different things, and I don't know why, every time I would go on something, there was always some kind of lesson in it, or something that I would journal about. And I still, ever since then, that was I guess the rewarding piece is, I was able, or I documented everything. I did YouTube videos. At the moment, I started noticing that something was wrong. When I described, I was still living in the dorms. I did YouTube videos to kind of, get it out there that, hey, something's going on, because I wanted to have something to go back. Or again, like I said, actually, if I'm being honest, when I did the YouTube videos, I thought I was going to have this big reveal that I don't know, something about, from a spiritual standpoint, I was going to kind of get into this, some big reveal at the end of all these successive videos, once I figured out what the hell was going on, if that makes any sense. So I thought there was a purpose behind my psychotic break. And so I would do these videos to kind of, so at the end I could say, well, all of that was because of, if that makes any sense. And so I think what was unique, or what I find rewarding, is, I still go back to those. They still pop up, and I see those reminders, and those things were like a lot of the stuff that I wrote, those downloads that I talked about, were things that I was not familiar with before. I had a science background. That was kind of the things that interest me. Was never into anything really spiritual. I mean, I tried as a kid, and it just never really resonated. But I always thought I saw it, and interesting, like I said, maybe that was just kind of the break that I needed to kind of open up to something new. But anyway, what was interesting is, for a long time, if it was, after I left the base, they had me on antipsychotics and medications and whatnot, and I started hitting a depressive mode, and I had never really felt like that before. And then right before I left you, they said, they switched my medication. They said I couldn't take lithium anymore. It was toxic to my white cells. And so they put me on another antipsychotic. All these things were giving me horrible side effects. And I don't even want to get dialed into that, because it's just a traumatic place, I guess is the best way to put it. But I got to a point and I was already separated or retired, medically retired from the Air Force, and I'm living here in Port St. Lucie, and I just got a job as a lab director, and so, but it's the height of COVID too, and so I'm going through these mental health issues. I just came down here in the height of COVID. I'm running a hospital or a lab at a hospital, and you know how the hospitals were during COVID, and so it was just crisis management every day. But I had a crisis in my head, and so it was so bad because I couldn't get a doc here locally, and I was still kind of doing my telecommunications with the docs at Tyndall, and it was bad because they were like, well, so we got to wait a couple weeks and we'll titrate you up 5 milligrams or whatever it may be. It was always a carrot on a stick that I would just be like, okay, I'll just wait for that and I'll be okay. And so I would literally go to work, do everything I could muster up to get through the day, and then come home, go to sleep, hoping I'm going to wake up feeling better. It just took everything to get through a day. I never experienced depression until finally, something snapped, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to call the mental health doc anymore. I'm not going to take any more appointments. I don't want any more pills. I'm done with it all. And so I just started kind of forcing myself to get back into my life. And all the pills, where I was done with all the stuff, I didn't really look at it as like there's anything wrong with me anymore. It was just interesting because I just started kind of getting healthier and healthier. And as I was getting healthier, those traumatic experiences were, less, I was able to dive back into them. I would go back into my journals and read them. And it was just so interesting to see the things that I had journaled about, the things that, I never talked about or never, understood or believed. And it would give me these things or these ideas, and I would just go back and research them. And that's all I'm into now is everything esoteric you can think of. I read everything I can get my hands on, and it all connects to that picture that I kind of had in my brain when I was, separated, if you will. And so, yeah, so that experience was traumatic and beautiful at the same time. And I told you when we first got on the call that, you probably more than most, if not all, bring me back to that experience because you were one of those people that I was able to connect with while I was sick. I was showing up to work every day, still sick, but and my mental faculties weren't there at all. But I just kind of can navigate through my day by people's energy, and I really mean that. Like you can see who I just, Natalia, you, there was just certain people that I knew I can trust and because I was in a very vulnerable state. And so to be able to kind of have that was very important to me. And so that's why when you reached out to me and said, would you like to talk? That's where I thought you were going with it, because that's kind of what I recall from our encounters. We spent a lot of time together, and a lot of those times I was highly manic. And so thank you for that. Nothing about my vision changed. My audio would certainly distort at times, and I would, maybe hear something different. And like I said, the thing that was, well, I haven't said that here, but I've shared with you that what would happen a lot of times is like I said, I would have that duality in my brain, and sometimes one would dominate more than the other, and sometimes you're kind of your normal logical self, and then other times you're like, there's something bigger. So so I didn't know which I guess leader to follow in my brain, and so there was time, like I said, it was just a feeling more than anything. Like you just kind of people's energy. What I mean, like like when how some people just walk in a room and they kind of light up a room, or they just have a certain way, like. I believe now, obviously through my studies, is I believe everybody has that toric field where that field of energy that's around you. And so just like when somebody's, you can feel when somebody's in a snotty mood or somebody's in a great mood and they come, near you, or they, talk to you in a certain way, you just detect those cues. Like my senses were heightened, would probably be a better. And so I would feel those things. I would know immediately, or my cues, my social cues were on high alert. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I would navigate through the days. And so, like a lot of the things, like I was, probably not very capable of like, your more regular mundane activities, but my abstract thinking was off the charts, or the things that my ability to kind of find connections and things. And so, like I share with you, like a lot of times I would have, if you're familiar with Carl Jung, when he spoke about and synchronicities and whatnot, I had that. And when I say it was such a strong affirmations and synchronicities, you're everything around you finished your thoughts. I mean, there would be times where I would almost swear to God that the song that I'm listening to, because it's filling in every thought, like when I'm like, no, that didn't say that. And it'll say, I just said it, or whatever it may be. It just kept, it would loop so hard that I was like, did this song get written back in whatever year it was, 1986, for me to hear it at this moment? I mean, every day, like I would have moments that felt that intense, where everything was just kind of screaming at me to just kind of slow down and pay attention to the world. And when you're in that kind of flow state, if you will, like in the Matrix, that the universe will work for you. And that's kind of, I don't know how to describe how strong I felt about that. Even the most menial things, even when it was something that didn't go my way, it was just always that, that realization that you can have a positive experience nonetheless, if that makes any sense. And so it was like, and you counter that with what happened afterwards. Like I said, with the medications, when I started getting on that, that's when I kind of took more of a destructive behaviors. And yeah. So that's probably the best way to describe it. More destructive behaviors, and was depressed. And there's a cycle there. Trying to find your way. The things you do to try to, get away from being depressed or get back to base reality, if you will. And like I said, it was kind of just taking control of my own life and saying, hey, getting into healthier habits, things like things that I started doing when I had my break, meditating, mindfulness, just kind of sitting there, like giving yourself time to clear out the cache of crap that you don't need, and let your mind produce the beautiful thoughts that it actually has in there, and I do mean that. Like these things were not, nobody was telling me, it was my brain. It was things that I just had to remember. And so you just got so much stuff that is impressed on you. There's so much sensation. There's so much, other people's anxieties, other people's deadlines. You just name it. You're in this matrix, and everything's, controlling you. Like I said, like when I felt like that determinism, that what I was talking about in that Newtonian world, that physical world, that matrix, I felt that pressure until I had to break, and you can step away, and you're like, I don't need to be part of that. And it was just like it was that simple. Like your brain doesn't need to be, you don't need to be part of, you don't need to partake in this visual reality. And what I mean by that is you can go somewhere in your brain, you can kind of see a different story, if that makes any sense. You can enjoy the sunset. You don't have to be stimulated by a movie while you're watching your phone and whatever else you might be doing, because that's what we do. We multitask. And so this was telling me to slow down and just kind of appreciate, stay in the moment, be here. And so I never was able to do that until I had those breaks. And then, like I said, you had the subsequent depression. And then when I started saying, no, man, that's not you. And I started taking back control of my life, and I started taking healthier habits and doing the right things, and kind of then you started seeing, wait a second, these are all the things that I had already journaled about. This is what I experienced. This is what I told myself to do. And so I had laid out a beautiful blueprint. And when I say that, it's such an understatement that I could never get across to you, because I literally, in my journals, I had 4 different apps that I would use. And one journal would be password protected. And I would read one, and it would finally give me the key to unlock this one. And so I really would have no idea, when I was going to get another, gift. And so I would keep getting these different things in my journals, these different ideas, and they always delivered. They would hit at the right time. It was something I needed at that moment, or for a lack of a better way, if I didn't complete that, it was going to keep showing up until you figured it out. Does that make sense? Because it was literally that. It was like, if you're not going to evolve, I'm going to keep you here. Does that make sense? And then when you figured it out, when it's like, hey, you're sitting there feeling sorry, your self pity, all that. Okay, we're going to do this to you. You were okay. And then when you go like, no, 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 I don't want your pills. I'm going to take control of it. Oh, okay. Now we're doing, a different story presents. Does that make sense? Like it was almost like an evolution or something new. It was like, this is back on your path. This is what, because even as an atheist, I believed in fate, right? I mean, I really did. I believed in fate and destiny. And now I'm more resolute in my belief in fate and destiny. I just believe, and I can expound on that, but that's just I don't want to get into so much into my personal worldview. I just think that anytime you try to compartmentalize or I guess put any kind of limitations, especially when you consider quantum physics. When you put any kind of limitations on things, then you're really putting blinders on to what's going on around you, because most of reality is not what we're sitting here looking at day to day. And I really do believe that. I don't believe that this matrix is what it's about. It's really about escaping it. And so, yeah, I mean that's probably yeah, unless you have something more, that's probably all I really have on that topic. I mean, I can get into different things that, like I said, the experiences in themselves were so unique. And I'll tell you, actually, this is important to me. So it's funny because you still kind of have to go through life, right? And so you get into those days where you're like angry or frustrated about whatever is going on in your life, and you find those moments where you're kind of you know I don't want to say defeated, but you kind of like you forget about what happened, or I forget. And so the reason why I think that's so important, because I extrapolate that. Like, not everybody gets, I feel like that was a gift, like a superpower that was given to me. And I do mean that. Like, so that happened for a reason. And the benefits and the second, third order effects of that were so tremendous that I look at it as a tremendous gift. And so, wow, even as I was offered this amazing gift, this glimpse, this flash of absentee or absentism of this matrix, or a step out of it and kind of seeing something different, I still catch myself caught in the matrix constantly. And that's the struggle, trying to separate, those, this is not where I'm supposed to be. Does that make sense? Like that, and I think your emotions kind of help you, are your guidelines on that, right? But I think, when you start having those, if you can't control your emotions, or you have those emotional responses, that that's kind of your indicator, right? That you need to kind of look at things a little bit differently. But I don't want to ramble, and I think I am. But yeah, I guess unless you got another question, I think that I probably am just babbling at this point.
I did have one more question. On every episode, I like to ask my friends to tell me something that they're grateful for. What are you
Oh,
grateful for, Jay?
ah, well, obviously that experience, because that's I just spent the whole time talking about it. But more than anything, is I'm grateful to be a father. That's my goal in life. And I don't mean goal like you hit the goal is to be a good one. Yeah, that's it. So I think I'm most grateful for that experience. I think that's a gift that a lot of us take for granted.
I thought you would say that because I see most of your posts are of your kids.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the most important thing to me.
Did you think that this is what the podcast was about?
You know, no, I didn't know where it was going to go. Like I said, I had some thoughts that because the conditions in which we met, that maybe it could lean into that, and I was certainly tepid, and I even still think I probably babbled way more than I would have liked, but but no, I'm more than anything, I'm just grateful that you thought of me as interesting enough to do a podcast with.
Well, I never answered your question. You want to know what it's about. So what we talked about, that was the main idea, was I wanted people to share their experiences and focus it on mental health specifically. And then people started offering to come on the show, like celebrities. And I thought about it and I said, that's not the point of this show. The point of the show is to take people in my circle and just have a casual, informal discussion with them. And if they want to, they can push their side hustle. I've had people push life coaching, insurance and annuities. I had somebody talk about doing Uber Eats. I don't know how that's relevant to connect with people, but I will tell you what, it reminded me that I just want my friends to be in season one so I can just show other people all you really need is someone to talk to and internet, and you can do a podcast.
That's true. And I think you're probably going to find some pretty unique stories out there too. You don't need sensationalism or headlines or any of that. I think just you can walk outside and probably grab anybody off the street, and they're probably going to have an interesting story to tell you.
I thought about that for next week's episode because I'm going to Philly and just it's going to be Thanksgiving and just walk around, ask people for 20 minutes, what are they grateful for?
I think that because if you even think about it, the fact that you have to form a thought and then verbalize it, just think about the reciprocity in that, the energy, cycle in that. So you're speaking gratitude. I think anybody would be happy to do that. And then when they do, the reverberation that you're going to get out of that is probably going to show in your podcast. Because I think when people get to talk about that kind of stuff, that's kind of the energy I was talking about earlier. So go for it. I hope you do that.
I'll
Do
give it
that.
a shot.
Huh?
You know how I am. I just talk to anybody.
I do know that. So again, it's not like it should be anything uncomfortable for you.
Yeah, it would be uncomfortable if I didn't talk to those people.
Exactly. And I think the fact that you're asking them what they're grateful for, I think, like I said, I think a lot of it, and it's cool because I wonder how often people sit and reflect. I mean, we hear they tell you to do it often, but I really wonder how often people do that. I'm a big vision board person. Obviously a journaler. I think that the more you have to actually use your brain rather than kind of have things fed to you, I think the the deep thinking or the concentrated thing, the focused thinking. And I think, like I said, when you ask those kind of poignant questions, people are going to have to really sit there and consider that. And so I think there's a gift in that.
Well, I'm grateful that I have friends like you who will come on to this podcast and be vulnerable and share their personal experiences. This is the eighth week in a row. I want to get it to the point where people ask me to be on the podcast and I don't have to chase people down. Yeah. Hopefully one day my nephew's old enough and he'll watch it. He's 2.5 right now.
Oh, that's cool. Well, that's cool for me too. This will be something that I could reflect back on as well.
Yeah, last week my friend, he had a major breakthrough. We were talking about how he's making some life changes, not on the level that you were doing, but just like a career change.
Uh-huh.
And I helped him talk it through and we recorded it and we put it on last week's episode.
Good for you, man. And that's what you're doing is a good thing, man. So whatever I'm sure what you project or what you expect, you're projecting, and so I think you'll get it, man. In terms of where you're trying to go with the podcast, like we had that discussion prior to getting on, where like I said, I think energy and effort can get you almost anywhere.
Do you have any questions for me?
Ah, well, you just answered one of them, but yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of why did you ask me?
Why did I ask you about the t-shirts or
Just to be on the podcast. Was it, I mean, because I didn't think the t-shirt story was all that interesting.
it was Natalia's idea. She
Okay.
wanted she wanted you because you're a good example of how because we know that you're in physically tip-top shape. You're an elite athlete. And you were able to see I shouldn't be poisoning my body with these medications. So you were able to stop it. And because you've always been physically healthy, but you are now also mentally healthy.
Working on it. It's a daily struggle. I
Yeah,
think for everybody. I think it's something you gotta be deliberate about. And that was something I never understood even prior to. So again, another blessing.
still have the picture on the wall.
That's the day I told you when we were bike riding. Do you remember I jumped in the ocean that day too? We were just riding along and we went we I get you guys we stopped and I remember I ran and jumped into the ocean real quick. I have very fond memories of hanging out with you and Natalia. That was a good time. That day in particular was a very, very good day.
You know, I had to sell my bike.
Why? Dude,
Uh,
that was so fun. Come on, that was one of the coolest experiences when we used to do that.
I broke the frame right where the chain is, so you can't even fix it. So I took that as the answer to my question, should I keep riding? And the answer is no. You should give up.
Well, and again, how are you doing? What are you doing to keep young and vibrant lifestyle wise?
So physically, I've been trying to work out. It hasn't been going so well. I haven't even been playing golf lately.
Why?
It's so hard if you're not a member of a country club to play golf in Virginia and DC. All the public courses are $100 and more.
Well, that's supposed to be a peaceful event, right? And so
Yeah,
you
I
know,
have to drive to Maryland to play golf.
yeah, it doesn't sound
I'm
so
not paying
peaceful.
$100,000 to join a country club.
Yeah, and again, drive and all that good stuff. It doesn't sound like you get the peaceful part. Sounds like it'd be stressed to get there. No, that said, I'm sorry to hear that. Hope maybe when you get to Arizona, you'll have some better luck.
I even have been taking lessons and trying to go because during COVID, like in 2021, 2022, I'd play like twice a week. But now that I live in an apartment, it's just like it's so taxing to even get to the driving range.
Are you are you doing much for your cardio?
I haven't done any cardio except for Uber Eats deliveries. So I picked up Uber Eats about 23 months ago, and
Really?
I will run from my car in the parking lot to the restaurants to get cardio in.
Well, and I only say that I think heart and lungs, man, that's the most important thing. So I think especially as we get older, those are things you kind of begrudgingly you do them, but they're probably the most poignant, most important things to do. Cardio, as painful as it can be.
Last year, I trimmed down to 133 pounds. I was eating really clean, but now I've gone back to my American diet and I'm up to 143 pounds. So I'm gonna have to start eating clean again.
I don't even, weight's one thing, right? I'm a big, again, and that kind of feeds into kind of the stuff that I was talking about earlier. Like it really did change my life holistically because even things, my diet and my approach to the things that I do for my health are way different. I wouldn't have considered myself healthy before. I was kind of I would eat more like a meathead, I guess. I was kind of more wanted to just lift as much, heavy weight or whatever. But Now I think I look at it more as how you are what you eat. Definitely, I'm that kind of person now. So it's kind of nice because you kind of look at things more like food. Food is more energy, and I look at it more like what's it going to do for me. So I look at that as my medicine, if that makes any sense.
I'm the same way. We are both people that we eat to live.
I remember that about you when we were out there, and so that's why when you said that, I was like, huh. Yeah, I remember you being a good eater. Remember that was our thing too. We'd to find those little diners or those little spots that just healthy eating places. We'd find those little hidden gems. We had the one that we went to a couple times.
I remember you introduced me to poke.
Oh, I haven't had that probably since.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Well, I think the beauty is, like I said, I was coming fresh off a divorce. I probably wasn't much of a cook when I was out there in Panama City. That's actually something I enjoy now. So, and like I said, because of my eating habits, it kind of bodes well.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my sweet potato banana smoothie for dinner.
That is a weird concoction. I'm trying to picture what that might taste like, but good for you. You kind of always did kind of have some eclectic food ideas. I recall that.
It's actually pretty common.
Really?
Sweet
Uh,
potato, banana, almond butter,
really?
Greek yogurt.
The sweet potato is it? I mean, it's done obviously, right? What,
I just roast it in the oven.
and so is the whole concoction hot? Or did you say it was a
I
string?
I freeze a sweet potato after I roast it.
And this is common.
Yeah.
I'm just not hip, man.
And for Thanksgiving,
I
I'm
love
making
all those
butternut
ingredients.
squash.
However. Pardon?
For Thanksgiving, I'm making butternut squash lasagna.
Oh, that sounds amazing, actually. And you said you're going to Philly for Thanksgiving? Who's in Philly?
I'm gonna go the Friday after Thanksgiving. I'll stay local, go to my
Okay,
friend's house.
good for you. Good for you. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving. A lot to be thankful for. Well, man, like I said, I really do appreciate you reaching out. It's good to talk to you. I haven't, it's sad that we went this long. That it took your podcast before we really got. I mean, I know we've probably shared some words here and there, but good to finally talk to you.
Oh yeah, man. I've had a lot go on the last 4 years, and not as much as you've had, but I find that it's really helpful if you do what you said and slow down. Yeah. I've learned recently that it's
Sure.
okay to daydream. That's when you get the best ideas.
I
Because
like.
you said when you're multitasking, you're just all over the place.
Oh yeah, nothing gets your focus, and it's funny because I think any activity that requires focus, like when you're talking about golf, and I think that's the beauty in that, right? Is because it's a moment where you can stay focused on one thing and you don't have all this other stuff that's crushing into your brain. So yeah, absolutely. I have a YouTube where King Jason that I did that has just a bunch of video shorts on things that kind of the things that I got into, like the esoteric kind of topics that I got into. So
Okay, send me the link.
yeah, I will. I think if anything, you might be interested in some of those things. I wish I was a good graphic editor and all that good stuff, and I don't care enough to kind of do to make it, I guess, put it in a nice package. But I do think the material or the information is amazing. I mean, it's. I think I stand on the material. It's just like I said, I'm not really big in the video editing, so that there could be better pictures, but I'll send you I probably got about, I don't know, at least 15 videos or so.
Okay. I'm
I'll
gonna
send.
I'm gonna stop recording.